You.
Good.
Last time we talked a little bit about the most mysterious thing in the world. This is love and love relationships. And we know that you are a psychologist, a professional, and that is why I have got some questions connected with this great and tender feeling. Don't you mind?
No, so go ahead. We'll be happy to.
My question, as a professional, could you give me the conception of this word, love? What does it mean? And is there any difference between human love and romantic love?
Yes, so there are, in psychology, or there are can be multiple definitions. The one that I give to my students, and it comes from my textbook, from the textbook that we use in my class. Number one, love is a state. It's not a feeling, it's a state, which means that it's a prolonged feeling or a state being for some time in love with someone, meaning having physiological excitement towards that individual, but also having emotional and emotions such as wanting to be with that person, thinking about that person. So that's, I would say, more of a simple description. The one I can give you a quote of what love, and again, it's a romantic love. That it is a feeling, and I quote, intense physiological arousal, an all-encompassing interest in that individual, recurrent fantasies, so you recurrently think about that individual, and also rapid swings of emotion. So basically, your emotional and emotions may change about that person. So that would be more of a formal definition.
Okay, thanks. And the second question is, for example, two people stay for some time together, and they have close relationships, but sometimes such situations happen that people apart. And how to cope with this feeling? Are there any special points to not to go into a depression and to cope with these sufferings which are connected with the situations when people apart?
Okay, so that's a very serious question. Just so you know, I'm not an expert in that specific area, so I just want to be clear. But and I think clinical psychologists or counselors, psychological counselors or therapists are definitely much better at dealing and helping people with those kinds of issues. I think it depends on, when you said falling apart, I would ask what exactly specific, in what specific area. So for example, one way I like to kind of describe love is using another theory, and it's a theory by a psychologist, Sternberg, who identifies three important elements to love. One is having intimacy, passion, and commitment. And so according to that theory, you may have high or low degrees in one of those three areas, right? So for example, you may be very intimate with your partner, and intimate meaning emotionally connected, right? You share feelings, emotions, interests, but you may not, you may lack that passion. And by passion, it's more of a physical passion, right? Sexual desire towards that person, but you may still be committed to that person. Or you may have very strong physical or sexual passion, but you may not have that intimacy level, that closeness, and or maybe you may not be committed. So basically, you can kind of describe and characterize the love that you have with the towards a particular individual based on those three elements. So when you say falling apart, this could be lack of intimacy, right? That would be
Mhm.
one of those. Or is it the physical aspect, so you would have to, I guess it would be one of those things that you have to be more specific. Does that make sense?
Um, Thank you for your answer. The next question is, when the people, for example, fall in love and they begin to live together and they find much common things together and they become close to each other. But sometimes the people are quite emotional. Other people are not emotional. For example, there are people who are sincere and quite calm people. And the young people very often ask such question, how to realize that a partner really loves you, that he or she has fallen in love, and how to understand that the love exists in the relationships. When, for example, the person is not quite emotional and doesn't open his heart and not talk much about love, how to realize that the person that is nearby is in love with you?
Yeah,
Are
I
there any
think,
points?
I think, right, were you asking me if some people are not as expressive as others, and they may not express their love explicitly with words, and so, yeah, some people may wonder, do you still love me? So there, I think there are multiple issues why people are not expressive. Some people are not expressive because they may have some what we call attachment issues.
Mhm.
So mm, the and that's a whole different, actually, big topic in psychology: attachment, security of attachment.
Mhm.
Based perhaps on previous relationships or even possibly childhood experiences, they may have a hard time with expressing their feelings, and that might be an issue. Well, I guess the short answer is it,
I suppose. Mhm.
I would say the short answer is, just because someone is not as expressive, they obviously still may love you. And I guess the short answer would be, if they tell you they love you and if they committed to you, and that means they love you. But this may
So,
not be enough, I guess, for some people.
so you mean that if a partner says that he or she loves, it's enough just to believe and not to think about it more. Okay, but for me to realize that the person, your partner really loves you, the first thing for me is when he or she takes care of you. And it is enough not to speak much about love, but if he does some special things for you and helps you in every detail, it means that he loves. So I suppose.
I would say not necessarily. I would disagree because there's two separate things. There's loving and then there is behavior, right? Some people, first of all, don't have the means to satisfy their partner, to buy things that the partner wants to, right? So, if the partner doesn't buy you enough or cannot support you the way you want to be supported, it's not necessarily that the partner doesn't love you. It's could be that the partner cannot afford it, or yeah, so it maybe has to do with money, financial situation.
Okay. And if people, for example, live together for some time and then some quarrels, for example, take place and not everything is good in their relationships, and once they decide to separate, are there any special points to discuss how to cope with the sufferings, how not to go into the depression, how to busy yourself um, to um, to cope with this sad feeling
With
without
separation,
when you stay without your partner? right?
Yeah, separation or divorce, it could be divorce, it could be a breakup, it can be a pretty painful experience. And it could be painful in the sense that it's not just psychological. I mean, when we talk about it can be almost experiencing physical pain. So it can be pretty painful. Now, again, because I'm not an expert in that particular area, this is more of this is a question for a therapist, someone who I would say be more qualified to answer that question. I'm going to say that this is for sure a very difficult and painful experience.
Marina, I'd like to ask you, there are such situations, they happen quite often when people are in romantic relationships, and they can be together, stay together for a long time, and even they can live together. But a partner, a man or a woman, doesn't make offer to marriage, or the woman doesn't take this offer.
Right.
Does it mean that there is now no love in such a family, or it quite possible to live with a person and not make an offer and just to continue such relationships without any offers?
Right. So again, I'll return to this theory by Sternberg, who, again, remember I mentioned 3 elements to love: intimacy, passion, and commitment. So love can vary based on those 3 elements. So what you're describing is lack of commitment, long-term commitment, right? And commitment to marry, or right, marriage, I guess that's the ultimate commitment. And it doesn't necessarily, again, if you, based on this theory, if the other, so it's just simply describes it describes the love of between those 2 individuals, where commitment is not necessarily there, but passion and intimacy is still there. So it's just a different type of, I would say it's still love. But here's another thing. Essentially what love is, whatever, if you consider it to be love or not. So if you consider that that is not love, then it's not love to you, right? It's not, because like I said, there's no one definition of love. So it becomes more of on the individual level. If you consider that not being able to commit to marry me, or then, and if you believe that that's not true love, then it's not love. So I guess it's individual for everyone, right?
Okay, and our psychologists, many of them, I heard, they say that if a person has fallen in love with another one, he or she definitely wants to make an official offer. It means to own this person completely, and marriage is one of the ways to own the partner. The contemporary psychologists say so, that if he doesn't offer to marry, it means that he doesn't love really, he doesn't make any common plans, he doesn't think for the future, and just he spare time together without thinking forward.
Well, okay, so here's what I'm going to disagree a little bit. So commitment now in modern time, I would say, is not necessarily marriage, right? So now a lot of young people today may be committed, but not to live in a committed relationship, but not necessarily in marriage. So that would still be, in my opinion, a commitment, right? If you commit to the individual, there are some, I can see that maybe reasons why some people decide not to officially marry. So I would disagree that marriage is the ultimate form of commitment. I would say commitment in terms of being with that person is considered a commitment. But if you're describing an individual who completely lacks that commitment, then I would say yes, it's missing completely from, then it would not be love. Right. So okay, I guess commitment is a bit it can be many different ways we can describe a commitment to another individual, right?
I see a point, and I suppose that when the partners both decide not to marry officially for some time, it is normal. But when one, if they decide together not to make their relationships official for some time, but if one of them really want maybe to have to give birth to children or something else, and another refuses this idea, I suppose that's something wrong in these relationships.
For
Well,
that individual, so they basically have different values. Yes, that's a problem. Yes, for at least those two individuals. Yes, you have to agree, I guess, on what your values and what you want to do
okay,
as a couple.
one more question. Do you suppose that, do you believe in love between partners of different ages, when she or he is quite young and another is quite old? And is it really possible to have real true love towards each other? Do you believe in such love?
Yes, of course. Why not? I don't see a problem. Yeah, definitely.
So the psychologists say that it is quite normal thing to fall in love. So it has common with the feeling of love, with a real feeling of love, right?
Well, so from an evolutionary perspective, women, again, evolutionary perspective and theory, if I use that, women are drawn to men with who are able to provide for them. This could be physical safety, protection, or it could be financial. Oftentimes, older men have those resources. They're more financially stable. They have the resources to provide for women. So it is, in fact, normal, typical for a younger woman to be in a relationship with an older man. So yes, that's not that's actually pretty typical. And it's also true that there's some research shows that women are drawn to men who are intelligent. I don't know if you've heard this term, that intelligence can be sexy. Probably comes from, again, an evolutionary perspective, that you could say that more intelligent men are more likely to hold better paid jobs and provide better for their partners. So that, again, kind of explains why. And again, that wouldn't be unusual for a woman to be in a relationship with an older man, because, again, they provide more security. Again, now we see a bit of more change in the society with more opportunities for women to have careers, to make more money. Now it's becoming actually normal for older women to date younger men. And that, again, that can be explained. So from the evolutionary perspective, and again, it's love between those individuals of, again, men, women of different age, very possible. Yes.
Okay, and one more question about friendship between a man and a woman. Okay, this is one of the most topics to discuss nowadays, and usually the psychologists say that such love between a man and a woman that can't exist at all, because in almost every situation, in such relationships, one of them has some sexual interest, and it is impossible to make friends just without any sexual motivation and excitement. Do you believe in such love, and have you ever met people who just really make friends without any romantic feelings? And
this is actually interesting. I just read an article on this topic, on friendships, and we could call platonic friendships between men and women. this is not this is not a very well studied area.
Right.
And actually the article that I read was quite old. But in that article, they essentially surveyed men and women. They asked, about their friends and whether they have friends of the opposite sex. And then they asked whether they're sexually attracted to them, those kinds of questions. So what this survey found was, in fact, it's true that there are many, so we'll consider in those reported cross-sex platonic friendships, there was some sexual attraction, but it's more for men than for women. So men tend to have more of those sexual attractions towards their female friends than women, but women did have them as well. Having said that, I believe that, again, because our society is changing and there's more of those kinds, if you see more of those kind of cross-sex friendships, I predict that now there will be, they become more typical and normal, and not necessarily have any sexual component to that. So I think, again, it's as society changes, our attitudes and will change and as well. And I personally know those kinds of friendships. So yes, I still believe that they're possible.
Okay, thank you. I wish much love to you.
Thank you. And I wish you a lot of love as well.
Bye.